The Washington Times recently wrote an article about Donald Tusk's government, detailing events such as his forceful takeover of public media, the unconstitutional takeover of the prosecutor's office and the judiciary, as well as the repression of the government's political opponents. These are some of the topics discussed in the Washington Times by Anna Chodakowicz-Walisz, president of the American Public Affairs Institute, the Edward Burke Foundation.
Na Europę Środkowo-Wschodnią.
There was a lot of attention on Central and Eastern Europe because Prime Minister Orban was visiting, and usually, when that happens, the whole region is observed with greater interest. This provides an opportunity to draw the world's attention to the repression employed by Donald Tusk's government. In an act of crude retributive justice, Mr. Tusk and his cronies have immediately engaged in a series of radical policy reversals and a brutal, wide-ranging campaign of repression and persecution of their political opponents. In previous years, the left-wing European mainstream media strongly attacked Poland, maintaining a false narrative about its political situation, paving the way for Donald Tusk's return to power. For quite a long time, the foreign media circulated false information about the political situation in Poland, which was unfortunately and quite cynically supported by the left-wing European mainstream media in order to support Donald Tusk's political camp. As we now know, the message was unfounded. Today, the establishment media are silent about the repression of Donald Tusk's opponents ever since his coalition took power. The government's vendetta against its opponents has been as aggressive as one would expect from a regime unconcerned with the legalities. Reports of the treatment of political detainees include accusation of torture and denial of counsel. The author of the article recalls the several months of detention of Father Michał Olszewski and the blocking of the activities of his Profeto Foundation. As of today, Father Olszewski has not been proven guilty of anything. Father Michał Olszewski was not given anything suitable to eat for over a dozen hours and was not given anything suitable to drink. The next day, he was told to urinate into a bottle and was not taken to the toilet. The media's silence surrounding the actions of the current government also applies to the cases of Ministry of Justice officials Ursula and Karolina, who were arrested and held in appalling circumstances. Sometimes I had to wait a very long time to go to the toilet, and I had a bladder infection, so when I felt sick and asked to leave the cell to go to the toilet to vomit, the police officer replied, "You can't go now, throw up on the floor." Were you handcuffed immediately when you arrived at the house? I was handcuffed immediately after entering, and in front of my child. This is part of a series of events carried out by the people who currently head the prosecutor's office and the Ministry of Justice, or who headed them earlier under Tusk's government, wanting to obtain evidence and trial material on anyone from the current opposition at any cost. The list of people subject to government repression is growing, and Brussels remains silent. Brussels is deaf and blind to what Donald Tusk is doing in Poland because Brussels wants it to happen. There are reasons for this consent, says MEP Jadwiga Wiśniewska. This is what the rule of law, this caricature of the rule of law in Brussels, was all about, because today Warsaw has a submissive government whose prime minister dutifully carries out every order from Brussels. No wonder, then, that when it comes to important issues of the rule of law and violations in Poland, the US administration sends notes to Brussels and the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, instead of to the Polish government. These kinds of letters are always sent to those in charge. The implication here is that the Polish government is treated as a proconsul of Brussels, not as a sovereign government. Considering that Tusk has what amounts to a legal carte blanche from Brussels, there's no telling what he'll do to hold on to power come the next election in Poland.